The X-ray shoe fitting machine, or the fluoroscope, was a common fixture in American shoe stores between the 1930s and the 1950s. In ads, the machines were touted as a new way to check the fit of a shoe. This was thought to guarantee that the shoes would be comfortable. Children's shoes were said to last longer because the fit could be more exact. In the early 1950s, professional medical associations began to issue warnings about the dangers of the exposure. Manufacturers became increasingly worried. States began to ban them from use, and shoe store owners started to phase them out of their stores by the end of the decade. Washing machines were a luxury in homes during the 1950s, so many families still did laundry by hand, using a sink, a washboard, and a wringer to remove excess water. To dry the clothes, there was the standard outside clothesline that each garment would be pinned to, so that it could be hung out to dry before ironing. Ironing in the 1950s was essential, and most housewives would spend an entire day doing laundry, ironing, and folding clothes so that their family would have clean and fresh clothes to wear each week. Many phone companies during the early 1950s still used manual telephone switchboards and a switchboard operator to connect calls by inserting a pair of phone plugs into the appropriate jacks. Each pair of plugs completed a cord circuit, and it allowed the operator to participate in the call. When a jack would light up, the switchboard operator would know that the telephone had been picked up and would ask for the name or number. Throughout the decade, phones fully transitioned over to self-service rotary dials that allowed the caller to dial the number directly, without the help of an operator. Between the 1920s and 1950s, the twin-lens reflex camera dominated the roll film camera world, with just about every major camera maker building a version of the camera. The TLR employed two lenses, arranged one above the other. The 45-degree mirror accounted for the word reflex, and the twin lens arrangement was designed to give Dad a viewfinder to see the image he was about to take. These cameras were fascinating for kids. Many were even handed down, with kids remembering fondly practicing their photography skills using the camera. How many of us remember practicing cursive on the blackboard at school? The elegantly connected letters made all of us feel more grown up, and it felt like a rite of passage as we entered the third grade. The art of penmanship was a necessity, and what better way to practice than by standing at the front of the classroom demonstrating your skills in front of everyone. As typewriters and later computers became a more efficient way to communicate, this practice of writing cursive on a blackboard seems to be a distant memory, but one that instantly takes you back to grade school in your mind. The iconic soda fountain is a classic symbol of the 1950s. These gathering places were usually located in drugstores, and were not only a place to share a malt, but they were often the epicenter of social life in some communities. As car culture picked up and drive-in restaurants became the norm, soda fountains experienced a sharp decline. Not only was fast food a factor in soda fountains disappearing, but soda also became widely available to pick up at a grocery store. Even though soda fountains didn't survive past the 1950s, they still conjure up some powerful memories. During the 1950s, owning a set of the Encyclopedia Britannica was a status symbol. These books were a major investment, with families paying in installments before they were fully owned. For kids growing up in the 1950s, it seemed you could find the answer to everything within the pages of this dense library of information. It also wasn't uncommon to see an Encyclopedia Britannica salesman walking door to door down your street. The 1950s may have been when your family first got a brand new television, but this new form of entertainment was limited by networks that provided programming and the ability to receive a television signal. To help with this, TVs needed an antenna, and to amplify a weak reception, many dads would wrap their bunny ears with some tinfoil and slowly adjust them until the picture could be seen. During the middle of the 20th century, college students would often participate in pranks on campus. One of these popular pranks was called a Panty Raid, which saw a group of college males invading the dorms or sororities of female students. Panties and other intimate apparel were sought as trophies, proof that the guys had momentarily crossed the forbidden territory of a co-ed's bedroom. Soon, the changing attitudes about sex and rule changes on college campuses led to the end of the Panty Raid as an organized activity. For young people, trying silly challenges has been around forever. Phone booth stuffing was definitely a brief fad during the late 1950s. Legend has it that a group of 25 South African students managed to cram themselves into a single phone booth, and as word of this spread across the country, young Americans couldn't help but try it. Rules for the challenge varied, with some requiring everyone to be totally inside the booth, while others allowed legs and arms to stick out. It was a bonus if someone could also complete a phone call while everyone was piled in. Within a year, the trend of phone booth stuffing lost its momentum and faded away. The 1950s became synonymous with the rise of classic cars, but it was also the last decade that new cars were sold without seat belts. As injuries and deaths from car accidents increased, seat belts were tested as a way to make cars safer. But in the 1950s, drivers had nothing strapping them into the front seat, which added to the freedom that they felt as they cruised down the road with the wind in their hair. The 1957 Chevy Bel Air may very well be the single most iconic automobile of the 1950s. The Bel Air was transformed in 1957 into one of the most gorgeous roadsters around. Some referred to this car as the poor man's Cadillac, but not even a Cadillac could rival this one-of-a-kind car. The popularity of the car has made it a highly sought-after classic car that is frequently used in movies, television, and music. The 1957 Chevy Bel Air remains, to this day, an automotive icon. If you enjoyed this video, check out the description for links that help support the channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching.